Hello, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And please do tell us where you're watching us from. Today, I am joined by a very, very special guest. This is Dr. Katampi. So, the doctor here is a vet doctor. And today, we are going to talk about issues that relate to uh, illegal consumption or consumption of illegal bushmeat. Now, the doctor here is a vet doctor, meaning that he's specialized in animal health, and so he will help us go through the dangers that relate to consumption of illegal game meat. In the meantime, please tell us if our sound is good. Please tell us where you're watching us from. It's good to see you. I can see that Yvonne Muleya, good to see you and welcome. Without taking too much of your time, let me just bring our guest in so that we can interact with him. At some point, we'll also let you ask him questions so that we make this as interactive as possible. Joining me is Dr. Jackson Katampi. Have I pronounced your name properly, Doc?
You have, Doc, you have. Shockingly, you have
Right.
even pronounced my surname very well.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. So, Doctor, one very quick one. Just give us a synopsis of your background. Who is Dr. Katampi? What did you study? What's your profession? Which organization are you with right now? So please go ahead in those lines.
Thanks, Doc. So like you have rightly put it, and like I congratulated you that you have pronounced my name, especially my surname, very well. A lot of people would want to call me Katumbi or Kadampi or whatever names that they tend to make, but I'm actually Dr. Jackson Katampi. I'm a vet by profession. I grew up in the tourist capital of Zambia, that is in Livingstone. That's where I did my education, my primary and secondary education. I completed my grade 12 at St. Raphael's Secondary School. Those of you that know Livingstone, you know what St. Raphael's is all about. And during my days in school, I headed quite a number of clubs. You know, in clubs, in school we used to have these different clubs, and one of the clubs that led me to actually study vet medicine, I was a chairperson for a tourism club, and we used to conduct a lot of game park drives, and we would go into the park to pick up litter. And in one of the years, the country was hit with drought. And I remember vividly one of the days we were during our tours in the park, we saw some animals that started dying because of lack of food and because of the drought that had hit us badly. And I remember looking at this buffalo. We spent close to an hour seeing it very paralyzed. It wasn't doing anything, and it was just seated there. And you can imagine an animal as big as a buffalo, and it was helpless. So we saw it actually die in our eyes, and there's nothing that we could do. So it really touched my heart. And since then, all I wanted was to find a way of helping these animals. And fortunately, when I went to the University of Zambia, there was a course which in my earlier stage I didn't understand very well, and that is veterinary medicine. So when an opportunity to go into the vet school came, I took it. And now I am. Right now I'm working for the Department of National Parks and Wildlife, formerly ZAWA, as a senior wildlife veterinary officer.
Right. So, as a senior veterinary officer working for ZAWA, what does your job entail on a day-to-day basis? What does your job entail?
Doc, our job is quite a, I would call it a double-edged sword, because on the other side, we are looking at human health and ensuring that we are preventing diseases to fly from animals into the humans. But on the other side, again, we are protecting the animals to ensure that the animals that are in our protected areas and in our private wildlife estate are healthy. So on my day-to-day basis, I would look at a number of things. Among them, I would ensure that animals are moved in a humane way between private wildlife estates, but also moving animals between protected areas and from protected areas to private wildlife estate. Also, my work entails that if at all there's a disease outbreak in wildlife, we do a lot of investigations, the disease investigations. So we also attend to court cases. So if somebody, for example, is caught with illegal wildlife or illegal government trophies, we come in to identify and we stand in court as expert witnesses. So it's quite a lot that we do, Doc. But in a nutshell, I think that would summarize. So in short, we provide veterinary services to wildlife.
Right. Now, under the concept of One Health, you as a vet and ourselves as human doctors, we have a point of common interest. And this is where you find that antibiotics that are used in animals can also cause disease resistance in humans and vice versa. And also issues to do with diseases that are common in both humans and animals. There are diseases that come from humans that affect animals, and diseases from animals that affect humans. From your professional perspective as a veterinary doctor, which are some of the common diseases that come to mind when you're looking at diseases that affect both men, that affect both animals and humans?
Well, Doc, as you may be aware, and probably as some of our listeners are, that we have quite a number of diseases that are common between animals and humans. And a majority of these animals that are actually in the human population originate from animals. And so to say that animals are carriers of most of the diseases that end up to be a problem in the human population. So at the top of my head right now, some of the diseases that I can think about, which are categorized or classified as zoonotic diseases, would include anthrax, tuberculosis, and a very common one that we are dealing with today, which is COVID-19 rather. We have these animals that can be traced back to animals. And also, Doc, there's a disease called cysticercosis, which you might know that it is common in pigs and in warthogs, and people that consume this meat are at a risk of actually getting this disease. I think growing up, we used to see it a lot. I think we used to call it kunyu, if I'm not mistaken. And that is a disease that is termed as neurocysticercosis, which is a zoonotic disease, and it's common in warthogs, in pigs, in bush pigs, and all these animals.
Right. Now, when you talk about these diseases that animals, wild animals can carry, or animals can carry that can also affect humans, which animals do you find in your practice, or which animals have been known to commonly carry some of these diseases?
Yeah, Doc, I would actually say that 3/4 of the species of wildlife are carriers of different pathogens. On top of my head, I would give an example of animals like buffaloes that are commonly known to carry TB. Animals like hippo, impala, kudus, that all these can be affected by anthrax, for example. And I mentioned bush pigs and warthogs that, would be found with cysticercosis, which, if consumed, can cause neurocysticercosis in humans.
So, apart from contracting or the risk of contracting some of these diseases. And we know that, for example, anthrax is extremely dangerous in humans. Tuberculosis is extremely dangerous in humans. COVID, we've just undergone COVID, which was a disease that crossed from animals to humans, and yellow fever and others. Now, doctor, from your professional perspective, apart from contracting diseases, what are the other dangers that you're aware of consuming illegal bushmeat?
I'm glad, Doc, that you have mentioned illegal bushmeat, because this looks to be the center focus of why we are ending up having these diseases jumping into the human population. The key word there is the word illegal, because if it's legal, then you know that it is going to pass through professionals that are going to ensure that the meat that you are consuming has undergone proper analysis before it is certified fit for human consumption. But if it is illegal, it means that none of that will be done on it. And because it is illegal, it therefore poses a risk of you contracting the diseases that we just mentioned earlier. But your question is, besides diseases, what is the other problem with consuming illegal bushmeat? I would say that firstly, you look at how do we harvest the so-called illegal bushmeat? How do we get it to ensure that it is ending up into your pot? People that we call poachers would go into a national park. They would either shoot this animal, or they would set up what are known as snares or traps to capture this animal. Now, when they do that, they want to make sure that they are not caught. Because remember that as a department, we are alert to that fact. And so we are always on the ground to ensure that we catch such culprits. Okay? Now, they would make sure that they would do it secretively, and they will make sure that they package it in a way that is not humane, in a way that will expose it to a lot of pathogens. So besides you contracting diseases, the impact that the illegal harvest of wildlife has on a national level is gravy. Because as a department, we have methods that we use to know how many animals we're supposed to harvest from a particular protected area, or from a game ranch, for example. They are what we call quotas. So these quotas are scientifically proven methods that are sustainable. So if you are buying legal game meat, that is a sustainable way of keeping the wildlife. But if you are buying illegal game meat, that means that the way it's being harvested is not sustainable. Now, what does that mean? What do we end up having? It means that we are ending up affecting the normal population growth of these animals. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we know that Zambia's tourism is almost 80 to 90% dependent on wildlife. So the more we deplete our protected areas, our national parks, with wildlife, the less we are going to earn from tourism. Because then you're going to drive into a national park and you won't see any animal. Next time you will not go there. And most of the tourists that we see that are coming into this country is because they want to come and see the wildlife that we have. And I think you know that a few years ago, we used to have a motto saying that Zambia, the real Africa, because we knew that in Zambia, this is where you can find different species of animals. Some of these are our game parks. When you drive into there, you can actually have an opportunity to see the big five. So now you can imagine if we are harvesting them illegally, it means that we are depleting them. But most importantly, also, what we are doing is that we are causing an imbalance in the ecosystem. Okay, so these animals, they bring what we call a balanced ecosystem. And as much as we want us humans to be healthy, we also want the environment that we live in to be healthy. Doc, I think you remember when we were in I think grade 5, grade 6, somewhere up there. We used
17 hours.
to learn about the rain cycle, and how water comes out of the plants, the rivers, and goes up into the sky and forms the nimbus clouds, and then it rains again. So it's because the ecosystem is healthy. That is why we have this normal rain cycle. But in simple terms, if we are harvesting the wildlife, the simple question that we need to ask ourselves is that we do not go into national parks to cultivate or to plant plants, but these plants are there because they are well regulated by the wildlife that is in there. Now, imagine depleting the ecosystem with wildlife. What will that mean is that we are not going to have some of the plants that are important. And as you know that most of all the oxygen that we breathe in as human beings, we are getting it from plants. So what happens if we don't have plants? It means that even the oxygen that we are enjoying today, one day it might not be there. I think, Doc, some countries that actually have started planting trees on top of buildings because of so much development that they do not have plants that are naturally growing. And because they want them, they start growing them on buildings and they're artificially manufacturing plants. But you and me are lucky because we are living in a nation that has good wildlife that is able to sustain our plants. So I mentioned one is that one of the dangers of harvesting wildlife illegally is that we are depleting our tourism sector. Two is that we are causing an imbalance in the ecosystem, which the consequences are gravy. Look at the climate change today that we are having. It is because of the footprint, the human footprint that we have in the world.
I see. Now, I'm sure the people who are watching us at home are wondering. Just briefly, walk us through what happens to an animal uh, if it's going to be processed legally. For example, somebody wants to obtain or they want to have access to legal bushmeat. What is the process and what sort of safety measures do you go through from your perspective as a health expert on the animal side? What measures do you put in place so that people can appreciate that legal bushmeat actually goes through this process, which illegal bushmeat doesn't?
Does not grow.
So walk
Yeah.
us through the process.
So first and foremost, the department works in collaboration with different organizations. And one of the organizations that we work in collaboration with is called the Wildlife Producers Association of Zambia. So the wildlife producers is a group of individuals that have what are termed as game ranches. Okay, so these people, they will actually buy animals from the department, or they would trade wildlife amongst themselves. Okay, so the department, together with that is the Department of National Parks, together with the veterinary department under the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock, has a deliberate policy to sample different game ranches that we certify to have health animals. Okay, so we do what we call disease surveillance in all these game ranches. Okay, so if at all we find that at a particular game ranch there is a disease of national importance, or there is a disease that is zoonotic, then we close that game ranch and ensure that it does not trade until that disease is under control. Okay, so that is number one. So first and foremost, the game ranch itself is certified that it has no disease that can easily jump into humans, or it has no disease that is termed zoonotic. Okay, then when the animal is slaughtered, we do what is termed as meat inspection. I think even cattle or pigs or goats or all these meat that end up into our pots, we ensure that they go through what is termed as meat inspection. So when we do that meat inspection, remember, we've started by analyzing the environment from which this animal is harvested from. Then when it is slaughtered, we now do a physical meat inspection on the actual carcass, okay? Such that by the time it's packaged, it has gone through that process, it will be certified to be fit for human consumption. But with illegal bushmeat, okay, with illegal bushmeat, it does not go through that process. Firstly, you don't even know where the animal is sourced from and what kind of disease is in that environment, okay? And no one has the luxury to do meat inspection on the carcass. Whereas with the legal bushmeat, we do that meat inspection. Even the packaging, okay, is inspected by us and by any other health officials. That ensures that it's packaged well, in a humane way, and in a proper mechanized manner that is fit for human consumption.
Now, how widespread is the problem of illegal bushmeat from your perspective as a department? How big of a problem is it?
It is a very big problem, and that is why we as a department, we are collaborating with a number of organizations and individuals. I must say that, Doc, for example, you as an individual can actually join the fight to help us fight against illegal bushmeat. You can become, for example, I think 2 weeks ago, is it a week ago, you saw in the papers where the minister gazetted some honorary wildlife police officers. These are community members that have taken a step to help us conserve the wildlife that we have. So the problem is gravy. The problem is countrywide, but the major markets are Lusaka and the Copper Belt, okay? But the meat itself is harvested from across the country. So for example, a hippo that has died of anthrax in Luangwa Valley, that meat, you find it transported illegally to Ndola and Kitwe, for example. So you find that some case, there will be an anthrax outbreak in Kitwe, and you'd find that it's very difficult to understand where the anthrax is coming from when actually it was the meat that was moved illegally. And remember, I mentioned that these people that are dealing with illegal bushmeat, everything from harvesting to selling, they do it illegally. Even the movement of, as you drive through the country, find that there are checkpoints where you've got vet inspectors, you've got health inspectors that would inspect whatever is being carried in a legal manner. But everything that is carried illegally, you find they put it under the seat, they put it in the bonnet, they put it wherever they want to put it, just to make sure that they are not seen. So the problem is big, and I think we need a holistic approach to address it.
Talking about addressing the problem, what is your department doing in addressing this issue of illegal bushmeat?
So as a department, as you know, we are mandated to ensure that we protect the wildlife across the country, and that you also know that every wildlife belongs to the state unless otherwise. So we have a unit called the conservation unit. We also have an operations unit. That's why you see these guys. I think growing up, you would see people in uniform like the one I'm dressed in right now at Vazawa. You see, their role is to make sure that if they catch you with illegal bushmeat, you go behind bars. And just an example, Doc, the penalties are quite grave now. If, for example, you are found with illegal possession of, let's say, a protected animal like a lechwe, the minimum you're going to go in jail is 5 years. So you can imagine. And you know that we, as the Department of National Parks, have the right to even set your pots. So don't think that when you buy something illegally and you put it in your pot, then we will not catch you. No, once we know that you have something that is illegal, we shall come to your home, set your fridges, set your pots, even if it's cooked, we shall know that this is bushmeat. And if it's illegal, unfortunately, you'll be charged for possession and you're going to go behind bars. So just imagine, you go for 5 years minimum just because you got a 1 kg or a 500 grams of bushmeat illegally. Imagine that, Doc. It's not worth it, I should say.
I agree with you. It's not worth it to go to jail for having bought illegal bushmeat. And to be fair, I've seen like people even asking, so where can people find legal bushmeat? Bushmeat that has undergone your process of safety, it has been checked and everything. So are there some outlets that you're aware of?
Yes, the easiest I would say is that people that have access to social media, they can go onto a platform that is called This Is Not a Game, and they will have a comprehensive list of butcheries that have licenses or that have been licensed to deal with legal bushmeat. So if you are watching, I'm sure you can just go on your search and just type "This Is Not a Game," or you can just go into your tab and type www.thisisnotagame.info. There's a whole lot of list there of different outlets that are selling legal bushmeat.
Right. Now, doctor, after everything is said and done,
Yeah.
what would be your message to our listeners? What's your take home message? If, for example, somebody finds or comes across someone who has, or they suspect that the meat is probably illegal, bush meat, how would a member of the public proceed in that scenario?
Firstly, they need to know that every legalized trader of bushmeat has a license number. Okay, so if you are given a receipt, okay, it should have a license number showing that that trader is legalized to deal in bushmeat. Secondly, they should also look out for a sticker. There's a sticker that we usually give. Sometimes it's even written, "This is not a game." It's there on their butchery or wherever. You find that there's a sticker. So the packaging also will have that sticker, the license number. They will have it. They'll issue you with a receipt that you can easily trace. So even when we come to your house, for example, and somebody has reported you that you are in possession of bushmeat, you can simply show us the receipt, and then we can be able to tell that this is a legalized a dealer in bushmeat. If a person is selling bushmeat and they do not have any of the documents that I've mentioned, suspect it to be illegal, meaning that stay away from it. But like I told you, that the fight needs a holistic approach, means that I need you to help us to catch these culprits. Okay, so you are supposed to report. It is your mandate as a well-meaningful Zambian to ensure that everyone that you see to be trading or trying to sell bushmeat, you report them to the relevant authorities. It is easy. You can even report to the nearest police station in case you don't have our numbers, or in case you don't have access to social media. When you go to any police station, they should be able to have a contact for ZAWA officials that are going to come and help or come and capture the culprit. So please, 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 if you suspect any illegality in the trade of bushmeat, report to us, report to the nearest police station, and definitely we shall come and deal with them.
Dr. Jackson Katambi, was a pleasure to have you. And I hope that next time we need you to come back and clarify some things, you'll make yourself available. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Doc. And I'm glad I was on your platform.
Excellent. And do take care of yourself, son. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We were hosting Dr. Jackson Katambi. Dr. Katambi is a veterinary doctor who is specialized, or rather spends most of his time looking after wild animals. And first of all, for the safety of the animals themselves, and also for the safety of the public. You've heard for yourselves that legal bushmeat is processed for the safety of the public to reduce the risk of transmission of diseases that can very easily cross from animals to humans. Now, from his perspective, I'm sure you were listening, his argument was that if you are consuming illegal bushmeat, you are opening yourselves up to a number of risks. You are not protected at all. And even if, for example, here's the issue. Let's assume you've consumed bushmeat and you have a disease. Okay. If it is legal, it is very easy for the authorities to trace it back to where it came from, including the ranch or the place where the animal was. And that way, they can also protect others. Now, if you consume illegal bushmeat, the authorities would not be able to work backwards and protect everybody else, including protecting animals. That is precisely why yourself and myself, we must encourage and continue to consume legal bushmeat, because consumption of legal bushmeat is not only good for your health, it is also sustainable. Sustainability means that we can have these animals around for the longest possible time. And I think that's what this whole program is about. That said, before you leave this platform, please share this video and spread the message. Remember, he also said that they can actually search your ndio at home, your pot at home. If your neighbor is smelling that aroma of bushmeat, they can also easily call authorities and say, come and check, my neighbor here is cooking bushmeat, come and verify whether it's legal or not. So just make sure that you are consuming legal bushmeat, lest your neighbor, out of envy, cause the authorities on you to come and authenticate what's in your pot. Ladies and gentlemen, that said, this has been Dr. Mjajati interacting with Dr. Jackson Katambi on the dangers of consuming illegal bushmeat. Do take care and enjoy the rest of the evening.